Mein Name ist Sonja Lahnstein und ich lebe in Hamburg, aber ich begrüße Sie heute hier, obwohl wir selber zu Gast sind. Ich bin Vorsitzende eines Vereins oder des Vereins zur Förderung des Israel-Museums in Jerusalem. Und Herr Beck, Michael Beck, ist unser langjähriges Mitglied und Unterstützer. Und wir sind hier mit einer wunderbaren Gruppe von Mitgliedern und Förderern des Israel-Museums. Vielleicht darf ich Sie alle bitten, einmal kurz aufzustehen, damit man sieht, wie viele wir sind. Wenn Sie mögen, wir sind hier alle zu Gast. Ja. Vielen, vielen Dank. Und wir verdanken es, wir haben das sozusagen mit gemeinsamen Kräften gemacht, aber wir verdanken es der unglaublichen Gastfreundschaft, der Virtualität und der Kreativität und Spontaneität von Michael Beck, dass wir hier zu Gast sein dürfen. Unser heutiges Thema haben wir auch gemeinsam erarbeitet und war auch nicht so schwer, aber es heißt Die Frauen von Chagall, Bella, Virginia und Vava, Fragezeichen, Musen und oder Managerin. Und es soll ja heißen, dass es ja nicht darum geht, wie diese drei Frauen im Leben von Chagall eine große Rolle gespielt haben, sondern auch darum, welche Art diese Rolle war, warum ist es eigentlich, dass man immer von Frauen als Musen hinter großen männlichen Künstlern spricht, Inspiration, Models, Musen, hinter jedem großen Künstler eine Frau, oder waren sie damals auch schon diejenigen, die eigentlich auch zum großen Teil dazu beigetragen haben, dass solche Künstler tatsächlich auch so wirken konnten, und wie ist es heute? Und dazu, bevor ich noch kurz zum Israel-Museum und dem Grund, warum wir hier sind und wie die Verbindung ist, komme, dazu geht es auch natürlich darum, welche Rolle Frauen heute in der Kunst, nicht nur als Künstlerin, sondern auch als Managerin, Gestalterin spielen. Und wir haben hier halt zwei wunderbare, ich will nicht sagen Exemplare, sondern zwei wunderbare Frauen. Und jetzt begrüße ich auf Englisch. Ronit, the curator of the Israel Museum, and Sorek, the curator for prints and drawings of the Israel Museum. It's her first trip from Israel to anywhere in 2 years, and we are so happy. It's also a first for all of us, actually. It's the first trip for the German friends, and we are so happy, Ronit, that you have come with us for this trip and that you are today with us. And I also am so happy that we have Diandra Donecker with us, who is now the managing director of Grisebach, Villa Grisebach. And maybe let me just say a few words first to introduce Ronit. I'm sorry I've spoken in German, okay. But I mean, I know you don't speak German, but for our audience. And I would just like to say that, Ronit, you've been, I think, at the museum for 20 years now?
24.
24 years, yes. And she's curator of prints and drawings at the Israel Museum, and extremely well acquainted with Chagall, of course, also. And she's done a lot of exhibitions, curated many exhibitions and catalogs, particularly on image of God in Jewish and Israeli art, on German-born Israeli artists, on Israeli women in art, on Palestinian artists. You have worked with Palestinian artists too, in particular Azim Abu Shakra. And also in 2010, in connection with the major donation to the museum, you have particularly curated a major exhibition with works of the German-Israeli artist Jakob Steinhardt. And you're doing many other things. You told me also that you are chair of the Workers' Union or the trade union at the Israel Museum. Diandra Donecker ist vielleicht die jüngste Geschäftsführerin, Managerin. Sie sagt das ganz klar und spontan. Natürlich haben Sie Kunstgeschichte studiert, aber auch Jura und Literatur. Und Sie waren ja schon im British Museum in London und im Metropolitan New York City aktiv und haben gearbeitet auch für Christie's, sind seit 4 oder 5 Jahren bei Villa Grisebach, erst als Abteilungsleiterin und jetzt als Geschäftsführerin. Danke. Herzlichen Glückwunsch dazu und herzlich willkommen. Michael Beck vorzustellen hier, glaube ich, wäre wie Eulen nach Athen zu tragen. Ich glaube, ich muss dich wirklich nicht vorstellen. Es ist, glaube ich, jedem in Tegernsee und weit darüber hinaus bekannt. Für uns ist Michael Beck, also für mich, ein persönlicher guter Freund und immer jemand wirklich, dem ich mich anvertrauen konnte, aber der auch Feuer gefangen hat für Israel und auch für die jüdische Geschichte, für die Gegenwart des jüdischen Volks, aber auch für Israel speziell. Und all das ist wie nirgendwo auf der Welt, eigentlich nicht nur das, aber auch das im Israel-Museum in Jerusalem verinnerlicht und zu besichtigen. Wir waren auch gemeinsam dort. Und vielleicht darf ich Ihnen auch zum Israel-Museum noch ein paar Worte sagen. Zum einen gibt es eine große Verbindung, weil das Israel-Museum, was ja zu den jetzt wieder im Newsweek in der großen Liste bestätigt, zu den 20 wichtigsten Museen auf dieser Welt zählt, nicht nur, weil es über 500.000 Kunstobjekte hat und von Prähistorie bis zur Gegenwart und Zeitgenössischen geht, sondern wirklich für den ganzen Nahen und Mittleren Osten eigentlich ein Leuchtturm für universelle Kultur und für interkulturelle Verständigung unter anderem ist. Und außerdem ist das Museum, das im 1965 gegründet wurde, von dem damaligen legendären Bürgermeister Teddy Kollek und Marc Chagall, die gemeinsam sozusagen den ersten Spatenstich gemacht haben. Und das Museum hat eine fantastische Sammlung, die von Ida, der Tochter von Marc Chagall, dem Museum vermacht worden ist. Eine einmalige Sammlung von Chagall, die wir, die Freunde des Israel-Museums, im Jahr 2011 in einer großen gemeinsam kuratierten Ausstellung mit dem Buceus Kunstforum nach Hamburg gebracht haben. Das Besondere an diesem Museum ist nicht nur alles atemberaubende Lage und Architektur und der Skulpturengarten, sondern es ist das Museum mit der größten Jugendabteilung aller großen Museen auf der Welt. Und dort gibt es ein Programm, das heißt Bridging the Gap. Und dieses Programm ist, wie wir schreiben, auch Baustein für eine friedliche Zukunft. Warum? Das ist ein einziges existierende Programm seit fast 30 Jahren vor Ort in Jerusalem, direkt dort, wo der Brennpunkt ist, wo die vielen Kulturen, die Ethnien, die Religionen aufeinandertreffen und alle Konflikte sozusagen sich dort kristallisieren, existiert dieses Programm für palästinensische und jüdische Kinder. Jedes Jahr, ununterbrochen, trotz Terror und trotz Krieg und Bedrohung, ungefähr 70, 80 Kinder, die Hälfte jüdisch aus Westjerusalem, die Hälfte palästinensisch aus Ostjerusalem. Jede Woche treffen sie werden abgeholt, sie essen gemeinsam, sie werden durch die Sperren, durch die Abgrenzungen und zum Teil Schikanen zum Museum gebracht und dort arbeiten sie gemeinsam an einem Thema, das die Kinder, sowohl die palästinensischen als auch die jüdischen, schwer beschäftigt. Mein Zuhause oder Arche Noah oder meine Träume. Und es ist zum ersten Mal, dass sie sich dort kennenlernen und dass sie lernen, das sind Kinder wie wir. Und dieses Programm schafft es wirklich, Vorurteile abzubauen. Ich könnte Ihnen jetzt stundenlang natürlich darüber erzählen. Ich kann Sie nur bitten, dieses Programm, was wirklich einmalig ist, und es ist anders, als was ich oft angesprochen werde, ach, das ist wie Barmbäums Ost-West-Diva. Nein, es ist anders, weil es in Jerusalem ist, wirklich dort, wo es am allerschwierigsten so etwas zu machen und wo es am allerwichtigsten ist. Sie haben alle so einen kleinen Flyer da und wir würden uns sehr freuen, wenn Sie sich das einmal kurz durchlesen. Es ist wenig Text. Auf unserer Website kann man viel dazu sagen. Michael war da und war sofort, hat Feuer gefangen und viele andere Freunde hier. Bitte denken Sie daran, wenn es dort möglich ist, dort, wo es am schwersten ist, ist es dann überall möglich und wir haben es alle nötig. Vielen Dank.
Thank you very much, Sonja. And you made a point and you made it now very, very clear to everybody why Chagall is my first exhibition. Another reason, besides that a Chagall was hanging over the bed when I was a young child. Unfortunately, my parents sold it when I was 7. But if you look at the book, you can see it. It's a fay which is flying over the city of Paris, and she was always over my head and brought luck and fortune to me. Because Chagall is somehow a kind of old-fashioned artist. So I'm very much interested in contemporary art. So for me, it's a very, very conservative exhibition, and I love it. I found again my conservative love of painting. Of course, we have a plan, we three, how we want to proceed, but I like to change plans. And if you allow, I would start to read to you from 2 books in German. I hope I find it now, because it's a changed plan, which maybe is a good introduction in a kind of a talk about the women of Chagall, what they did to him, and what they belonged to them. But you see, it's the wrong book, so. Here we are. Was ist das? Du lässt mich rasch ein, schaust mich an. Woher kommst du denn angereist? Also es geht um eine Konversation zwischen Bella, seiner ersten Frau, und Chagall. Meinst du, mit Paketen könne man nur vom Bahnhof kommen? Rate, was ist heute für ein Tag? Frag mich etwas Leichteres. Ich weiß nie, welcher Tag wir haben. Nein, nicht Wochentag. Heute ist doch dein Geburtstag. Verblüfft stehst du da, Chagall, also Bella schreibt, wenn ich dir mitgeteilt hätte, der Zar persönlich sei in unserer Stadt, wärst du nicht überraschter gewesen. Woher weißt du das? Rasch falte ich meine Tücher auseinander, hänge sie an die Wände, lege eines über den Tisch, breite meine Decke über dein Bett. Du aber ergreifst blitzschnell eine Leinwand, stellst sie auf und sagst, rühr dich nicht, bleib genau so, wie du jetzt dastehst. Die Blumen sind noch in meinen Händen. Ich bin mitten in der Bewegung, möchte die Blumen rasch ins Wasser stellen, damit sie nicht welken. Aber dann vergesse ich sie. Du bist über deine Leinwand hergefallen, dass sie unter deinen Händen erzittert, tauchst ein, drückst Farbe, rote, blaue, weiße, verschleppst mich mit einem Strom von Farben. Plötzlich fühle ich mich wie von der Erde weggehoben. Du stößt dich mit einem Bein vom Boden ab, als sei es dir in deinem kleinen Zimmer zu eng geworden. Du schwingst dich empor, fliegst zur Decke hinauf, dein Kopf dreht sich, du verdrehst auch den meinen, schmiegst dich hinter meine Ohren und flüstert mir etwas zu. Ich lausche, als sängest du mit deiner weichen, tiefen Stimme ein Lied für mich. In deinen Augen sehe ich den Widerhall deines Liedes. Vereint schweben wir über dem geschmückten Zimmer, kommen zum Fenster, wollen hindurch. Draußen ruft uns eine Wolke, ein Stück blauer Himmel. Die mit den bunten Tüchern behängten Wände drehen sich, verwirren uns. Wir fliegen hinaus über Felder voller Blumen, über verschlossene Häuschen, über Dächer, Höfe, Kirchen. Wie gefällt dir mein Bild? Plötzlich stehst du wieder auf deinen Füßen, schaust auf dein Bild, auf mich, trittst von der Staffelei zurück und wieder näher hin. Da ist noch viel zu tun. So kann man es nicht lassen, nicht wahr? Sag, darf ich noch weiterarbeiten? Du allein redest, wartest, hast Angst, was ich sagen werde. Oh, Es ist sehr gut, du bist so schön weggeflogen. Wir wollen es der Geburtstag nennen. Jetzt ist dir leichter ums Herz. Kommst du morgen wieder? Ich will noch ein Bild malen. Das zeigt so ein bisschen...
English.
Okay. Yeah, you have not understood this, but it shows a little bit a situation how Bella describes how Chagall was painting, inspired by her in a very short moment. But now I have to read you a text from some years later. Der 25-jährige Marc Chagall und seine 2 Jahre jüngere Verlobte Bella hatten sich seit fast 2 Jahren nicht gesehen, als der in Paris lebende Künstler 1912 von ihr einen Brief erhielt, der sein bisheriges Werk einer Generalkritik unterzog. Bella schrieb: Du bist noch sehr jung, also sie war ja noch jünger, ja? Drängst danach, alles zum Ausdruck zu bringen. Alles Verehrte und Unsterbliche. Man hat den Eindruck, du meinst mit deiner Kenntnis des Geheiligsten erstaunen zu können. Was folgt daraus? Ein Übermaß an Dingen und Fakten, die in keinerlei Verbindung stehen oder Bezug zueinander haben. Sie sah die Ursache für Chagalls Schwächen in seinem Mangel an Erfahrung und machte seine distanzierte Herangehensweise dafür verantwortlich. Es fehlt diese Anteilnahme, mit der man das Sakrale zur Geltung bringen muss. Du darfst Menschen nicht erschrecken, ihnen mit Furcht und Tadel den Boden unter den Füßen wegziehen. Das ist geradezu, verzeih mir, primitiv und ziemlich kindisch. Welche Muse in der Geschichte schrieb je solche Worte an einen Künstler? So she is criticizing Chagall 1912 in a very, very harsh way. And so I think that Bella was really an outstanding person. On the one hand, in the first text, you understood that she was inspiring him in a way, just arriving, being there, beauty with the flowers in her hand, and he said, "Stop it! Stop like this! I have to paint you." And then he got in the act of action painting. Actually, fantastic! These two flying over the roofs and being in Chagall's world. And on the second quotation, she is really criticizing him harsh and telling him, this is not the way you will be successful. And of course, this is outstanding. I actually don't know a second wife or muse who was, and that's why I quoted this, on the one hand, the muse, and on the other hand, the managerin, the manager. Guck, das ist die... Ja, sagt man, Gender-Geschichte. In English we don't have managerin. Okay, the manager. And I would like to give the word to Ronit, who is from us three the Chagall expert, and to listen to your opinion, especially because we don't have only Bella.
Yeah.
We have 3 women who were important for him, and each of these women in a different way.
Yeah. Actually, it's not only 3.
Yeah. I guess so.
Yeah. It's not only 3 because when we think about Chagall, between the muse and the manager, we have to start from his grandmother.
Oh, yeah.
And I was so happy to see this wonderful, early, rare drawing. Yeah, because if we think about the first woman...
Ronit, can you speak up a little bit, please?
Yeah. If we want to speak about the first woman in Chagall life, actually we have to speak about his grandmother. And he describes her very warmly. She was one, I think, the first significant female figure in his life. And he describes her as a kind woman who is reading Yiddish books, prayer books, because there were special prayer books in Yiddish, so the women will be able to read them. And the second woman in his life was, actually she is the first, his mother.
His mother.
Yeah, and he also describes his mother as his first supporter. I mean, she was the first woman, or the first one that he told her that he wants to be an artist. Of course, she didn't like the idea, okay? So this is a kind of a manager. But she was also his muse, because he thought that she gave him his spirit, his free spirit character. And she used to sing with him, and of course she did, as every Jewish mother, she didn't want him to be an artist, but at the end she was the one who enabled him to study art, also already in Vitebsk. So these two women, mother and grandmother, they were the first muse and managers. And yeah,
I never actually understood how he could achieve to be an artist, because as I read and heard, he came from a very, very poor family.
Yeah.
And you all know you have to live from something, so he must be very, very, lived a very, very basic life to have the time and some money to study art.
Yeah, indeed, he was very poor, and although he was very poor, I think he was very convinced in himself that he should be an artist, and I think it broke all the rules. I mean, his mother helped him to have his first lessons. Also in Judah Pence, his first teacher for art, and then, well, we can say that he chose the right woman, the right wife, because Bella came from a very wealthy family. So I think it helped. Actually, all his three wives, Bella, Virginia, and Vava, Valentina, came from a wealthy families. So it always,
but
yeah.
When I read the book, or when I remember what I read in the book, if I read it right, it was Bella, because Bella describes very, very, very vividly how they met for the first time, and she writes how she fell in love with this crazy person.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether he really took her or whether she took him.
We'll never know. Yeah. But actually, I think that Bella was his muse, and I think that she was his muse. She came like his ideal love. She became an idea, actually. And although she died in young age, in 44, I think that she continued to be this ideal image of love. But very quickly, and I'm not criticizing, after her death, he had his second wife, Virginia, who was the daughter of a diplomat. She already had a daughter, and actually Ida hired Virginia to help him and to support him in, taking care of all the things, and among them is to illustrate and publish his wife, his Bella's books. And I'm very happy that you chose to read a paragraph from Burning Lights, from her first book. She had actually 3 books. She had Burning Lights, First Encounter, and from my...
The third one I have not.
Okay, and we have the illustrations for her books. The third one is First Encounter, and this book is describing her first encounter with Chagall, of course. And we, thanks to Ida Chagall, their daughter, and the mother of Meret Meyer, we have the original drawings that Chagall made for these 3 books. And so Virginia helped him to publish and to finish this project of illustrating Bella's books. And they, at the end, they married and they had a son, David. And all this happens like 1 year after Bella's death. And they were married for 7 years. And I think Virginia was different than Bella. She was, she devoted herself to Chagall. I mean, I think Bella also was devoted, but she was really, as you mentioned, she was very, she was independent. She was also a writer, a Yiddish writer. And Virginia, since she met Chagall, she was really completely devoted to his work, to his life. And they stayed together for 7 years. And when they separated, he had his third wife, Vava, who
but
also...
May I interrupt you? Because you're right saying when they separated, she went away.
Yeah.
And she left him behind.
Yeah.
Because I think this is very important, because there are men, I guess there are women as well, who cannot stay alone.
Yeah.
So Chagall is a good example of that, of this man, but also this artist, who always needed a partner.
Yeah.
And in this case, it was not only a partner, but it was his love affair, or his love, or his marriage.
Yeah. I think that it was there was also love, always love, and also assistance, and also muse. And Virginia wasn't a manager. And yes, she left him for a photographer who actually came to photograph their life. And then she left with this photographer. And then again, Ida brought him the new assistant, and this was Vava. And
organized.
Yeah. And she came from a Russian Jewish family, a very wealthy one, the Brodsky family. They were like businessmen from Russia, and she became the ultimate manager. Yeah, she was managing him through the end of life. She managed his career. She told him what to do, what to paint. She organized his life. She organized his everyday creativity, if I may say so. And I think that now the manager of Chagall heritage is Merit Meyer, who is also very active and very significant, because she keeps very carefully his heritage. I mean, she's involved in everything. She's the daughter of Ida Chagall and of Franz Meyer, who was his art historian. And so she knows everything about Chagall works, and she goes into details. And as I said before, the fact that she took out from your exhibition only one work of art, this is, you can be very happy. Because, she's really checking everything. Of course, the dates, the titles, and of course the authenticity of the works. And I think that she's doing it in a very clever way,
And one question from my side, when we talk about the grandmother, the mother, the 3 women in his life, what was the role of the daughter? Was it a muse and a manager as well? So
I don't know. I know that.
She delivered the muses in a way.
Yeah, I think.
So she was the manager.
I think she managed him in a way. She's a really important donor of the Israel Museum. She was a very close friend of Teddy Kollek, the mayor of Jerusalem, and actually the founder of the Israel Museum. And Teddy Kollek convinced her to donate her father's illustrating to her mother's books, and she donated us these important drawings. And she convinced some other friends of the Chagall family to donate other important paintings to the museum. And so in a sense, she was also managing his career and his legacy.
If we just look, or you can see the illustration in the beginning here, the left one observing the whole scene that her father is painting well is Ida, the young. If you look at it, she's really standing there and looking already what's going on, and from there she went and
she had 2 daughters. She had Meret, and her twin sister is Bella. And Bella is, I've heard that she has she's living in New York, and she has a special shop, a special flower boutique.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and it's very nice to see because all Chagall's bouquet and his love of flowers, so it's very nice.
But you were talking about other women in Chagall's life, so these are the officials, because I want to make a comparison with the second Grand Master of the 20th century, the first half of the 20th century, who was much more attacked to the change of new women as Chagall, because he always changed the style with a new partner. He was married sometimes. I'm talking, of course, of Pablo Picasso, who had 7 official women and or partners, and the 7. When he changed what he actually did, besides of one, he was the one who decided, no, it's enough. I need some new inspiration. So he left his partner. The only one who left him was François. François Chillot, she was the only one who said vice versa, no, I leave you. And he never forgave her. I visited François in New York, and it was a very nice encounter. She's a great lady. She's still living in New York. She's an artist herself. And so we did also an exhibition, and she came to Düsseldorf for her, I think it was her 80th birthday. And actually I didn't know that she's coming to Düsseldorf for her 80th birthday. Can you imagine? François Chillot. Okay, we did the party. But I was wondering why her son, Claude Picasso, Paloma Picasso, her daughter, weren't there. Yes? So she was celebrating with her exhibition. So she was also very eager as an artist. It was more important to have an exhibition with us than to celebrate with her family.
That's nice.
But to see now the comparison with the partners of Chagall, his wives, and Picasso. I mean, he never changed his style. And I wanted to say, as what you said with Vava, who then organized his life, his work, his everything. She also kept the people away. You could not enter the studio anymore without. She was like a Cerberus. And what I heard, and this is a true criticism, that she also told him, don't paint the Stettel, all this dark cottages and the poor people. We need colors, we need flowers. Paint Saint Paul de Vence. That's something Gerhard would buy. Huh? For example. And it's much colorful and nice on the wall. And
I heard this story also.
What do you think about it?
Okay. Actually, Chagall painted France and Paris before he met Vava, of course. I also heard this story. I don't know. I mean, maybe, I think he never left the Stettel, the small town he was born in, but I think she had a very significant influence on his late period. Yeah, that's we can't ignore it. Yeah,
I can't imagine any artist who would paint something he would not stand behind. Yes?
Yeah.
This is always. Yesterday we had a tour through the Pinakothek, and the guide standing in front of a late Picasso, he said, "Look at this late Picasso."
Yeah.
I think it looks like that his art dealer said, we need now 20 Picassos, paint quickly. And I think this is stupid. I don't think that Picasso would have painted something he would not be convinced of.
Yeah, and also Chagall.
Exactly, that's the pride of the artist. There's so many ideas in the world that something is painted by an artist of aspects of money.
Yeah.
I mean, a late work, all painters look at the late works. They are different because you're not anymore in the power. You have painted lifetime. A good example for me is Emil Nolde, who has painted wonderful works in the late years.
Yeah.
All the other expressionists is more a catastrophe, so you can be lucky that August Macri died in the war 1914 and Franz Marc 16. Good for their work. If you look at Gabriele Münter's late work, for example.
But look at Matisse.
Yeah. This is and also Picasso. It's different, the work, but it's true. It's still what they wanted to paint. And this is the question I have with Chagall, because you read and you hear all the time that Vava, to exaggerate it, said, "Now away with this dark painting. You now before you get lunch, paint the flowers to life."
And what's so interesting for me is that when I read the topic of our talk, I was in the first moment thinking that this topic means that we are talking about the limitation of women always being in the second row or not having a big chance to show themselves. So I think she was not in the second row. She was very important in telling him maybe what would sell, but what makes sense to his oeuvre as well. Mm-hmm. And this is something I find interesting with your biography as well, because you are coming from an artist background and you have a mother and a father. Right. And how was that? How was that?
Because I have a father and a mother, yes, you're right.
Yes, but how was it?
Yeah, that's interesting, because of course I can tell you from first hand. In the case of my family, it was definitely that my mother was not inspiring my father. He was inspired by different things, but she was the manager in that kind that she organized the life. My father could not how is it, steer an egg. Heißt das so? Also ein Spiegelei konnte er nicht mal machen. Also he was not able to survive in daily life, and this was the part of my mother. My father was from morning till evening playing music, playing tennis, playing chess, and playing on the papers with colors. And my mother was organizing the life. So this is she was definitely no muse in the kind as, for example, Bella, which could be seen also maybe in this person, or indirectly.
But I think that Chagall managers, they were also muse, because if you look at the female figures in his paintings, you can see Bella, you can see Virginia, and you can see Vava. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it seems that they placed these two roles simultaneously. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but Vava was the manager. Yeah, the manager, and Bella was not so managing.
The inspiration by the ladies in general, compared between Picasso and Chagall, was totally different. Because I think in Chagall you have not much erotic.
No, don't forget that he came from a very traditional family, and a very traditional Jewish heritage. Yeah. So he can't be Picasso.
Yeah, that's somehow also...
He has a mother and a grandmother.
Who watched.
Who watched, yeah.
Okay.
Michael, I heard your mother was an artist as well?
Yeah.
So you're not talking about a manager. She resigned
Exactly, yeah. She actually was that's actually a good moment to get in a bit different direction, asking, for example, when we talk about Muses, it's always female, mostly. I mean, we've been yesterday the whole day in museums, and we have seen only male artists, besides of 1, 2, 3 examples. So the question is, how male was the art world? Of course it was. There were so few women artists during the last 5 centuries. It was a totally male world. But how is it changing now? And that's actually why we invited Diandra, who made it directly in the top of our male world. And I feel a little bit afraid that now something could happen to us, to our. Yes.
Don't be afraid, Michael.
No, of you not, but there are other examples.
No, I think this is really something that is so interesting in connecting, like looking to the past and the present in artist works and looking into the art market. Because when I'm looking into our catalogs, for example, and into actually every other catalog, we see it's like 85% male artists. And it's still like this. It's not only in the 1980s. When we go through museums, it's 90% male artists as well. I think we cannot talk about the topic without, of course, looking into society and development of society. And it has always been a very male-dominated society, of course. And women were more the ones doing the household for a long, long time. And I'm happy that there was this movement of freeing women in the 60s and 70s. And then suddenly we see female artists arising a little bit, not much. And another interesting point is, and I do say this to invite you to bid in auctions because I rarely have any female clients. All clients I have on the phone during auctions are men. Maybe
Incredible.
The woman is sitting behind
and she says,
the husband.
Stop.
Yes, something like this. And Christiane Zapp, you maybe have the same experience, I guess?
You're right. Well, I'm now with Vava for 20 years, and I think in 20 years I make telephone bidding with all countries all over the world.
Yeah.
And I think perhaps 30 ladies were on the phone, and all over the time only the gentlemen were.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Sometimes you have a souffleuse behind, and you hear and the souffleuse says, no, not more. It's enough. It's enough to have the spot. And so it's always a souffleuse, but all the gentlemen are calling us. Or I'm calling the gentlemen.
Yeah.
That's right.
And so I think, for example, like my appointment being head of Grisebach means a lot, not only for my life, but it's a decision, and I'm sure many of you know Mr. Bernd Schulz, a wonderful visionary person. He decided to pick me, so it was a white old man picking a young blonde girl being 29, and that's something I adore, because we still need... Yes, we still need men who pick women, and I think there are now artists. It's like this.
That's so nice.
It's a little bit like this, and there is an interesting, wie sagt man, Stiftung nochmal, a great foundation which is called Albright Foundation, and this is a name that is leaning towards Madeleine Albright, but written with a double L. And this foundation tries to make clear that for every woman to be chosen into like the front row, whatever it is, it needs a man to make the decision still. And it's still like that, a man picks a man. So the statistic calls it the Thomas Prinzip. I don't know, so it's always a man picking a man. And I think this is the one side, and the other side is the empowerment of women. So I hope that today, if, for example, a woman would be an artist herself, like your mother, that maybe she says, learn cooking your egg, and I'm going back to my work. And I know that there are some artists in the room as well, and I think it's still very difficult, especially when you're a female artist. And that's something so interesting about this topic. It has always been, and it's still.
I would like to come back to your question, how it was with my mother. So she was studying art in Leipzig. Then there was the war, and then they fled to Tegernsee. And here was the situation that my father decided to stop his business as a goldsmith and to become a real artist. He always was interested in painting, but this was a hobby. And then in 1947, he decided to do this. And there was, of course, in that moment, need of financing. And so my mother had to keep the household, and they were renting one room to guests who came here as in holidays. Tourists. And my father, he was playing music for the GIs and earned some money in that way. And of course, through that, there was also no space in the room. There was only one studio, and this was occupied by my father. So it was, my mother never complained about this because she raised three human beings and took care of a lot of animals, dogs and cats. And when there was the situation where we all were out of the house, she made the point and said, okay, I want to start painting again. And my father then said, okay, that's fine. Because actually, now I remember that my father always discussed the paintings with her. So her opinion on his paintings was important for him. And so he immediately said, okay, yes, we share the studio, but in a man's world. 6 days me and 1 day you.
Are you in the early morning?
Or something like that, after cooking. Yes, please.
I wanted, because we don't have so much time, I think we have just maybe for a quarter of an hour left. I wanted to ask Ronit if she could tell us something about the women in Israel. As I understand, there are many, many female artists in Israel, and there are many also directors of museums and so on. Would you say that in Israel, in general, the situation for women in art and art business is better?
Yes, I can say. Yeah, in Israel, I think in the last maybe 30 years even, there are many, many artists which are prominent, which are, in the center of the art world. There are also collectors, female collectors, which are very central. I can say that most of the curators in Israel are female, and now we have female directors of museums, and we can say that the two most important female directors, it's of the Tel Aviv Museum, Suzanne Landau, and now Tanya Cohen-Uzieli, they came directly from the Israel Museum. So actually they're ours. And there were some other less known museums which are directed by women. So I think that the feminine presence in the art world of Israel is very significant and very prominent.
But it's improving all over.
Yeah.
But you have the question as well?
One question. The title of your discussion is The Women of Chagall, Muses and Managers.
Mm-hmm.
My question is, are there also dealers of his work?
Did they, I don't know, did they do business? Whether they were also dealers?
Yeah. Bella and Virginia, absolutely not. I think that Vava can be called a kind of a dealer, yeah, but not a kind of a dealer, not a real dealer, but a kind of a dealer. Yeah.
Chagall had his dealers like Aimé Mab, who was really occupying a lot of his business, who also was then in the late years in Saint-Paul-de-Vence.
He had like patrons, and he had like publishers for his lithographs. In France. I don't think he had like one significant dealer that went with him through long way. Yeah.
You walk around and you remember what you have seen from Chagall, and there's one thing which stuns me.
Yeah.
He is painting a story, wonderful story.
Yeah, he's a
But
storyteller.
he is not exactly painting a woman. If you look at the female figures in the paintings, is it well, that is a series, I know, but is it an ideal he has? It's always the same type and not very elaborate. There is no real portrait in the painting.
Yeah.
Did he ever talk about it? Did he ever talk about his relationship to women, or are we only guessing?
No, I think most of the time we are guessing, But you can see that actually, you know that Bella, Virginia, and Vava, they had there was quite resemblance in their face. Yeah, I think he chose the same type of a woman, but you can see the differences, of course. But actually, I think that he like elaborated the three faces to an ideal format, to an ideal image of a woman. So actually, I think that's what we see.
You're totally right. He developed his ideal of a female person, also of other persons. It's always his style. I mean, what we see here is the Cosmo of Chagall, and he painted his own world. And this is why it's so recognizable. If you meet people in Hong Kong or in Shanghai, they all, if they know something, recognize a Chagall on the wall. Yeah. It's very significant what he created, his own world. But I would like to come back on generalizing the idea of the situation of women, and I think as well, not only in Israel, but all over the world, we see an immense increase of women in powerful positions, especially in state museums. And I mean, you're very young, and Schulz is very clever. But I mean, of course, he has chosen you not because you're a young, blonde woman, you said, but because you're intelligent and
yes, I
eager.
was waiting for you.
Yeah, you cannot say this. No, intelligent, eager, hardworking, the future of maybe such a business. But as I remember, your partners is only one man. You're three women, one man in the business. Yeah, you see.
Yeah. Grisebach is very female in a way, but yes, I think of course it's not, that was not the point I wanted to make, that it's like most important to be a female and then there comes what you're able to do. No, of course it's always about your content and your expertise and the quality of your work, but I do see this change with more and more women popping up everywhere. With great interest, because it's relevant to have a society that builds up all of us. And I'm curious to know, because I have no idea, honestly, if there are many female artists with their male muses. I'm sure they exist. And
Cecil Brown.
Yes, for example, or Georgia O'Keeffe and Stieglitz, they were maybe in a way very closely working together and with great connected minds on equal levels. So there are examples, but and I don't want to have the super feminist position only, but I think it's a relevant dynamic in our society at the moment.
I understood that,
and I like it.
Yeah, it's absolutely necessary. Otherwise, you never come in the position. because you have 500 or 2,000 years of disadvantage.
Yeah.
So you need the support of strong men. And just to come back once more to the story, we are representing Chris Reinicke. She's an artist in her 80s now, and she was the wife of Immendorf. And she was studying at the academy in Düsseldorf with Gerhard Höhme. And a fellow student was Sigmar Polke. And she actually stopped doing art because she could not stand anymore the insults she got from her colleagues and how she was treated in the academy. She was like, everybody could touch her, everybody could make fun with her. She was just there were no women, yes? So, and Immendorf was, of course, a super macho. And he developed then, after the beginning of an idealist way of doing art to get commercial, and then she made the right decision. I mean, she is the really artist, and said, no, I'm not going any further because you are dismissing our ideal ideas for the utopia to make the world better. Yes, there was the Lidl. How do you say, the little happening in the academy, so they were really fighting for better food, for better living, and then he started to paint because he could sell it better, so it was really easy like that. And she stopped doing art for a whole time, and then now she began 20 years ago, and she's a great artist, but no one knows her, and she was really destroyed by the man's world. And if I look what we're doing today, it will be a women's world in the future.
A better world.
And then a better world, of course. I'm totally your opinion. Okay,
Just also
Tobias.
Bring up another important woman being discovered nowadays is Yayoi Kusama. In Germany, she's not that much known, but when I told my friend in New York that there's a Kusama retrospective in Berlin, it was unfortunately during the Corona pandemic, she was so jealous because she told me she was standing 9 hours in front of Whitney Museum and couldn't get a ticket. And but Kusama, she also was in the 60s in America, and what you were telling about this lady, it was the same. Nobody took her serious, and she lives in an institution for people with mental illness for 40 years in Tokyo now. But now with her polka dot pumpkins, she races as a star, but she's 90 years old until she became the star she is right now. And for decades, nobody took her serious with her polka dots everywhere.
You're not totally right. Because Kusama had contacts to the Zero movement in Germany, and she's been in Germany. And Heinz Mack, whom we are representing exclusively worldwide, was a friend of her, and I was discussing with him. And from the group, she was accepted. So Oecker, Pine, Manzoni, she was accepted as one artist. There were only few. I only remember Dadamaino, and is there another? Doch, Mandavigo. 3 artists of the Zero group, female artist, and about 30 male. And the 3, I think, were accepted as artists, as women artists. So Kusama, but we're talking about the late 50s and 60s.
But we could actually change to Laiko, who you represent too.
Yeah.
Because she's like a prominent female artist, and her husband is taking care of so much in the background.
Yeah, that's
right?
a good example. Reiko Ikumura, a Japanese artist who's very successful at the moment, and she will be here actually on another talk. She's a Japanese artist, and as you know, the Japanese are very, very fond of Chagall. So many Chagalls were sold to Japan. They are really crazy. And it's very interesting, a female contemporary artist sees Chagall, and she sees him in a very special way. So I'm very looking forward to this talk. And you're totally right. There it is vice versa, but this is today, not the 50s.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you see, it's all proof that it changes. I'm also the only man on the stage. Still, 10 years, I'm not anymore here. Alexander.
Just a question, because you were mentioning is that most art collectors are male but not female. This is what you mentioned also, let's say, Diandra, when you were talking about who's bidding with you at auction. Is Chagall an artist who is appealing especially to female collectors, or is it rather an artist who is more attracting male collectors? Because, I mean, in a very positive sense of the word, a lot of these works, they are very smooth, they have sweet colors, they're decorative, yeah, they're not too harsh, they're not too cruel, they're not too male. So who is, let's say,
I definitely don't want to say that the sweet work is now for the females. If you want to push me in this direction, no, I'm not saying this.
No, what are the facts? Who are the buyers? Can you say something?
I don't know about about Chagall in the art business, but I can say that Chagall is still very relevant. We have, for example, a traveling exhibition that you know, and this is the most popular traveling exhibition of the Israel Museum. The last time it traveled to Korea, to Seoul, and it was a great success. I think there were like
more than 11,000.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh my God.
So I won't say how
we
many
have
visitors.
11,000.
Yeah. And now we are planning, as you know, and then our next traveling exhibition is to Milan, to Italy, and so I think he's still very popular all over the world. I don't know, men or.
Yes, I would say, of course, as a person looking at the bidders and buyers, it's again more the men. But interesting, Alexander, as we know each other, I can be so frank, your question is referring to this kind of, wie sagt man das, in eine Box stecken, so ein bisschen, it's sweet and feminine and not cruel and male. So I think this is a good point to start the conversation upstairs with a glass of wine, because I hope that we can, all be everything. So I think this is, as art should be, fascinating for every human being looking at it. Some find it too sweet, some think it's dreamy and just wonderful and magical. And in the end, I think it will address every one of us. But from my perspective, it's men who buy and bid, but this is not the picture of falling in love with an artwork in general.
Yeah, well, and then about the thing about the bidding, only males are bidding, or only men are bidding. We've heard a lovely story yesterday with Nanette Ehrring, how she bid for this wonderful painting, and that was long ago.
Yeah.
She said it was 71.
She is an exception. This lady is an exception in all kind. Yeah. Teresa.
I listened to you talk, and there are a lot of memories rushing through my head, because I used to work for the National Gallery, and I had the privilege of, I was there when Indorf did his exhibition at the Neue Nationalgalerie, and at that time he was together with Oda Jauna, who is a young artist as well, and I don't actually know how she is doing since he died, but I remember during he built up the exhibition, it was always, he was a true macho. I was really scared of him, I have to say. He was a very scary man, although he was very ill at that time already. And the interesting part was that the curator was Annette Wisch, who became also one of the first directors at a museum in Germany. She's at the Kunsthalle in Kiel, she's the director. But Indorf at that time, he was always where's my wife? He was always really harsh. He was always yelling around, where's my wife? And then she would always, she was this angelic figure, coming in, and I was really impressed at her, because she is also so very beautiful, and but took herself also very seriously as an artist.
Absolutely.
And, but at that time didn't want to decide anything without her. And although she didn't speak very much, it was almost her presence just made him decide what he had to do. That's what expression I got. And then also, for example, Hiroshi Sugimoto, when he was there, his wife was the boss. Like it was nothing, was like every interview, everything would just go through her. Like she would decide how long, how he would talk to anyone, and it was just, like very interesting how the different artists, for example, most male artists, they always came with their partners, and they always, like they would, ask for guidance almost a little bit, and they would always make sure their partner would be there. And but all the female artists that, like for example, Terence Simon or so, it was always clear that the women would always stand alone, and they would not have a partner or someone who they would directly refer to as a muse or someone to sort of like hold on to. They would always have to make sure that they are like strong within themselves. And I was also thinking why it's changing now, and you said that it always takes men basically who make the space. It's also for the prize of the National Gallery. It was like in the beginning was only male jury members. So, and then over the years, over the 15 years that I was there, I noticed more and more women came into the jury, and then more and more women were also selected into the, like to be nominated for the prize. And we also had one year where there were only women. So, I don't know, it's changing.
It's changing, definitely.
I think we have to...
Okay, so I thank you all very much.
If I may,
yes, please.
Co-host, also thank you
Absolutely.
so much. Because we are doing this together. We also, this is in the framework of our dialogue series of bridging the gap. So bridging the gap between men and women, between artists and the scene. And I think it was most entertaining. Thank you so much. And we learned also a lot. And I think as a woman, I'm worked as a manager, but I would also love to be a muse.
Well, we change our role again. Normally a young, beautiful woman is asked to deliver the flowers. Now an old white man comes to me. So we're going to start with Ronit. Thank you so much for coming here.
Thank you for
I'd like to
inviting me.
see you again, and I hope we will meet again. And
yes, thank you.
Diandra, thank you for coming. We're all both from Berlin. And Sonja, I asked you to join us on stage. And I always wanted to hand over some flowers to you.
Okay, thank you.
Now, the first time I have the option to give it to you.
Thank you so much. This is my board colleague.
What's going on with me? What's going
on
with
me?
Well, for you, I have some sweets. No flowers from my side, but some sweets. I hope you like.